Along all the roads around Goderville, the peasants and their wives were coming toward the borough because it was market day. In the public square of Goderville, there was a crowd. Maître Hochecombe of Brote had just arrived at Goderville, and he was directing his steps toward the public square when he perceived upon the ground a little piece of string. Maître Hochecombe, economical like a true Norman, thought that everything useful ought to be picked up, and he bent painfully, for he suffered from rheumatism. He took the bit of thin cord from the ground and began to roll it carefully, when he noticed Maître Malandin, the harness-maker, on the threshold of his door, looking at him. They had heretofore had business together on the subject of a halter, and they were on bad terms, both being good haters. Maître Hochecombe was seized with a sort of shame to be seen thus by his enemy, picking a bit of a head, 2 arms, and string out of the dirt. He concealed his find quickly under his blouse, then in his trousers pocket. Then he pretended to be still looking on the ground for something which he did not find, and he went toward the market, his head forward, bent double by his pains. At Jourdain's, the great room was full of people eating, as the big court was full of vehicles of all kinds, carts, gigs, wagons, dump carts, yellow with dirt, mended and patched, raising their shafts to the sky like 2 arms, or perhaps with their shafts in the ground and their backs in the air. Suddenly, the drum beat in the court before the house. Everybody rose, except a few indifferent persons, and ran to the door or the windows. After the public crier had ceased his drum-beating, he called out in a jerky voice, speaking his phrases irregularly, "It is hereby made known to the inhabitants of Goderville, and in general to all persons present at the market, that there was lost this morning, on the road to Benzville, between 9 and 10 o'clock, a black leather pocket-book containing 500 francs and some business papers. The finder is requested to return same with all haste to the mayor's office or to Maître Fortune Ulbrech of Maneville. There will be 20 francs reward." Then the man went away. Then they began to talk of this event. They were finishing their coffee when a chief of the gendarmes appeared upon the threshold. He inquired, "Is Maître Hochecombe of Brote here?" Maître Hochecombe, seated at the other end of the table, replied, "Here I am." And the officer resumed, "Maître Hochecombe, will you have the goodness to accompany me to the mayor's office? The mayor would like to talk to you." The peasant, surprised and disturbed, swallowed at a draught his tiny glass of brandy, rose, and even more bent than in the morning, for the first steps after each rest were specially difficult, set out, repeating, "Here I am, here I am." The mayor was awaiting him, seated on an armchair. He was the notary of the vicinity, a stout, serious man with pompous phrases. "Maître Hochecombe," said he, "you are seen this morning to pick up, on the road to Benzville, the pocket-book lost by Maître Ulbrech of Maneville." The countryman, astounded, looked at the mayor, already terrified by this suspicion resting on him without his knowing why. "Me? Me? Me pick up the pocket-book?" "Yes, you yourself." "Word of honor, I never heard of it." "But you were seen." "I was seen? Me? Who says he saw me?" "Monsieur Malandin, the harness-maker." The old man remembered, understood, and flushed with anger. "Ah, he saw me, the clodhopper. He saw me pick up this string here, Monsieur the Mayor." And rummaging in his pocket, he drew out the little piece of string. But the mayor, incredulous, shook his head. "You will not make me believe, Maître Hochecombe, that Monsieur Malandin, who is a man worthy of credence, mistook this cord for a pocket-book." The peasant, furious, lifted his hand, spat at one side to attest his honor, repeating, "It is nevertheless the truth of the good God, the sacred truth, Monsieur the Mayor. I repeat it on my soul and my salvation." The mayor resumed. "After picking up the object, you stood like a stilt, looking a long while in the mud to see if any piece of money had fallen out." The good old man choked with indignation and fear. "How anyone can tell such lies to take away an honest man's reputation? How can anyone?" There was no use in his protesting. Nobody believed him. He was confronted with Monsieur Malandin, who repeated and maintained his affirmation. At his own request, Maître Hochecombe was searched. Nothing was found on him. Finally, the mayor, very much perplexed, discharged him with a warning that he would consult the public prosecutor and ask for further orders. The news had spread. He began to tell the story of the string. No one believed him. They laughed at him. They said, "Old rascal, get out." And he grew angry. Night came. It made him ill at night. The next day, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Marius Paumelle, a hired man in the employ of Maître Breton, husbandman at Imanville, returned the pocketbook and its contents to Maître Ulbrech of Maneville. This man claimed to have found the object in the road, but not knowing how to read, he had carried it to the house and given it to his employer. The news spread through the neighborhood. Maître Hochecombe was informed of it. He immediately went the circuit and began to recount his story, completed by the happy climax. He was in triumph. What grieved me so much was not the thing itself as the lying. There is nothing so shameful as to be placed under a cloud on account of a lie. He talked of his adventure all day long. He was calm now, and yet something disturbed him without his knowing exactly what it was. People had the air of joking while they listened. They did not seem convinced. He seemed to feel that remarks were being made behind his back. On Tuesday of the next week, he went to the market at Goderville, urged solely by the necessity he felt of discussing the case. Malandin, standing at his door, began to laugh on seeing him pass. Why? He approached the farmer from Crequetot, who did not let him finish, and, giving him a thump in the stomach, said to his face, "You big rascal." Then he turned his back on him. Maître Hochecombe was confused. Why was he called a big rascal? When he was seated at the table in Jourdain's tavern, he commenced to explain the affair. A horse-dealer from Montvilliers called to him. "Come, come, old sharper, that's an old trick. I know all about your piece of string." Hochecombe stammered, "But since the pocketbook was found—" But the other man replied, "Shut up, Papa. There is one that finds, and there is one that reports. At any rate, you are mixed with it." The peasant stood choking. He understood. They accused him of having had the pocketbook returned by a confederate, by an accomplice. He tried to protest. All the table began to laugh. He could not finish his dinner, and went away in the midst of jeers. He went home ashamed and indignant, choking with anger and confusion, the more dejected that he was capable, with his Norman cunning, of doing what they had accused him of, and boasting of it as of a good turn. His innocence, to him, in a confused way, was impossible to prove, as his sharpness was known, and he was stricken to the heart by the injustice of the suspicion. Then he began to recount the adventures again, prolonging his history every day, adding each time new reasons, more energetic protestations, more solemn oaths, which he imagined and prepared in his hours of solitude, his whole mind given up to the story of the string. He was believed so much the less as his defense was more complicated and his arguing more subtle. "Those are lying excuses," they said behind his back. He felt it, consumed his heart over it, and wore himself out with useless efforts. he wasted away before their very eyes. The wags now made him tell about the string to amuse them, as they make a soldier who has been on a campaign tell about his battles. His mind, touched to the depth, began to weaken. Toward the end of December, he took to his bed. He died in the first days of January, and in the delirium of his death struggles he kept claiming his innocence, reiterating, "A piece of string, a piece of string, look! Here it is, Monsieur de